New York in the early morning carried its signature rush, a symphony of honking cars, hurried footsteps, and the distant hum of a city that never slowed down. Nikki Anderson, the young CEO of Anderson & Co., strode through the busy streets on his way to the office. Dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, he exuded power and precision. His sharp gaze flicked over the crowds, but never lingered too long on anyone. His life, much like the black coffee in his hand, was always simple and meticulously controlled. No sugar, no milk, no room for chaos. He thrived on precision, predictability, and absolute focus. But fate had a way of disrupting even the most controlled lives. Just a few feet away, Rosalind Dawson, a clumsy but spirited young woman, was dashing through the crowd, already late for her job interview at Anderson & Co. Too focused on her panic, she failed to look where she was going and crashed directly into someone. The entire contents of her steaming hot coffee spilled all over his expensive suit. She gasped and looked up, only to see a perfectly sculpted face with piercing eyes that now held a lethal glare. Nikki glanced down at his ruined suit before slowly looking back at the disaster of a woman standing before him. Rosalind froze. Her survival instincts kicked in. Without thinking, she fumbled into her purse, pulled out a $20 bill, shoved it into his hand, and blurted out, "This should cover it." Then she bolted into the towering office building without looking back. Nikki Anderson stood there, staring at the $20 bill in his hand, an eyebrow arching slightly. No one had ever treated him like that before, but instead of irritation, an amused smirk played at the corner of his lips. This girl was interesting. Rosalind burst into the towering glass building of Anderson & Co., panting. She had exactly 5 minutes before her interview started. She rushed straight to the reception desk, practically collapsing onto the counter like she had just finished a marathon. I'm here for an interview with the..." Rosalind gasped, but before she could finish her sentence, the receptionist gave her a strange look. "Are you sure?" Rosalind blinked in confusion. The receptionist wasn't looking at her face, she was staring at her dress. Her dress was inside out. Her throat went dry. The zipper was glaringly visible in the front, and worse, the price tag dangled at her neckline. No way," she whispered, her face heating up. She sprinted to the restroom, yanked off her dress, and put it on correctly. When she walked back out, she tried to act natural, striding straight to the reception desk as if nothing had happened. Clearing her throat, she put on her most professional voice. "Hello, I'm Rosalind Dawson. I have an interview today at Anderson & Co." The air went completely silent. The receptionist blinked. Then, after a brief pause, she gave a perfectly polite smile. "Please wait a moment. I'll notify the HR department of Anderson & Co." Rosalind wanted to dig a hole and disappear. Before she could react, an employee walked up. "Ms. Dawson, I'll escort you to the interview room." With no escape, Rosalind had no choice but to follow, trying her best to look professional. But the nightmare wasn't over yet. The moment she stepped into the room, she tripped over the rug and crashed forward, knocking over a neatly stacked pile of documents. "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to," she blurted, scrambling to pick up the papers. But as she looked up, she froze. Nikki Anderson, the man she had spilled coffee all over just minutes ago. He sat there, arms crossed, his icy blue eyes locked onto her, but beneath the cold stare there was something else. Amusement. "Well, if it isn't the $20 compensation girl." His deep voice held a trace of mockery. Rosalind felt like vanishing into thin air. I can explain. You can start by explaining why you called my company Anderson & Co." A dead silence filled the room. The HR director beside him coughed, barely suppressing laughter. Rosalind squeezed her eyes shut, inhaling deeply. Fine, she had made it this far. No way was she backing out now. She straightened up, cleared her throat, and declared, "I'm Rosalind Dawson. I may have just ruined your morning, tripped over your carpet, and possibly offended your entire company name, but I promise I'll make this job a lot more interesting than anyone else." Nikki watched her, a smirk ghosting his lips. This interview just got interesting. Rosalind was 100% sure she had lost this job. I mean, who manages to cause a complete disaster in just 10 minutes? Spilling coffee on the CEO, wearing her dress inside out, tripping over and crashing into his desk? And yet, she still got hired. On her first day at Anderson & Co., Rosalind was still in shock. She stared at her job acceptance email, wondering if Nikki had made a terrible mistake. The answer came within 30 minutes. Fire! Fire! Smoke billowed from the pantry as employees scattered in panic. Rosalind stood frozen, her expression a mix of horror and guilt. She had only meant to microwave her noodles, but somehow she had turned the office microwave into a smoking disaster zone. Nikki arrived at the scene, arms crossed, his gaze cold and unreadable. "You've been here less than an hour and you're already trying to burn down my company?" Rosalind stammered. "I swear, I just pressed the reheat button." Nikki pinched the bridge of his nose. The office was dead silent, until Philippe, his assistant, snorted with laughter, and like a domino effect, the entire floor burst into laughter. Somehow, this disaster had made the office feel lighter, more alive, and strangely enough, Nikki found himself looking forward to what she would mess up next. But the chaos didn't stop there. The following week, Rosalind continued to create a legendary series of office mishaps. She accidentally sent an email with a dancing camel gif to the entire board of directors. During an important meeting, her phone's voice assistant randomly blurted out, "I don't understand your question, but I assume your CEO is very handsome," and she mistakenly addressed Nikki as "my dearest boss" instead of Mr. Anderson in an email sent to the entire company. By the time she realized her mistake, Rosalind wanted to dig a hole and disappear, but the strangest thing was, Nikki never fired her. Instead, every time she created another disaster, he would simply sigh, shake his head, and raise an eyebrow at her. "I've never hired anyone as entertaining as you." And just like that, Nikki Anderson's perfectly structured life was completely turned upside down. No one in the office could understand why Rosalind hadn't been fired yet. She was a walking disaster, a one-woman office catastrophe, and yet, somehow, she was still here. The most shocking part? Nikki Anderson, the cold, intimidating CEO, had never once raised his voice at her. Rosalind didn't understand it either, until one day she accidentally fell asleep at her desk. Nikki walked into the meeting room, searching for a file, only to pause when he saw her, fast asleep, her hair falling gently over the desk, her breathing soft and even. Something in his gaze softened, though he didn't even realize it. Without thinking, he shrugged off his suit jacket and carefully draped it over her shoulders. The next morning, Rosalind woke up, staring at the expensive jacket wrapped around her like a blanket. She immediately panicked. "Did I sleepwalk into someone else's office?" Bellick chuckled. "No, the boss covered you up." Rosalind blinked. The cold-hearted CEO cared about her? But that was just the beginning of the strange moments between them. At a company party, Rosalind tripped on the red carpet, nearly crashing into the dining table. Nikki dropped his drink without hesitation to catch her in time. Another time, they got caught in a sudden downpour. Rosalind laughed, stretching her hands out to catch the rain like a carefree child. Nikki just watched her, and without realizing it, smiled. In a tense meeting, when another department head unfairly criticized Rosalind, Nikki's voice suddenly turned sharp and icy, shutting down the entire room. Rosalind started to realize something. She always caused trouble, yet Nikki never truly got angry with her. He didn't laugh much, but every time he looked at her, his gaze wasn't as cold as before. And the scariest part? Rosalind was starting to fall for him too. Rosalind didn't think her life could get any more complicated. That was before Bonnie Hayes showed up. Bonnie wasn't just any woman. She was the epitome of high society, elegant, beautiful, and deeply connected in the finance world. More importantly, she was Nikki's ex-fiancée. One morning, while Rosalind was fumbling in the office kitchen, trying not to cause another disaster, Bonnie walked in, radiating sophistication and confidence. "Oh, so you're the assistant working for Nikki." Bonnie's smile was polite, but her eyes were ice cold. Rosalind instantly sensed a storm brewing. Bonnie hadn't returned by accident. She was here with a purpose: to reclaim Nikki. Somehow, over the next few days, Bonnie was always around Nikki. Elegant galas, important board meetings, even casual office lunches. She was everywhere. And the worst part? Bonnie was perfect, something Rosalind had never been. When Rosalind accidentally dropped a stack of papers, Bonnie gracefully picked them up, while Rosalind wanted to vanish into thin air. When Rosalind tripped over her words, Bonnie simply smiled and murmured, "How adorable." She stood beside Nikki as if nothing had changed between them. Rosalind felt like an outsider. She knew she wasn't perfect, not like Bonnie, and when she caught the way Bonnie looked at her, Rosalind understood. She's telling me you don't deserve him? For the first time, Rosalind started doubting herself. Rosalind tried not to care. She tried not to notice when Bonnie linked arms with Nikki in the office, tried not to listen when coworkers whispered about how perfect they looked together. But the more she tried, the more it hurt. Maybe Bonnie was right. She didn't belong in this world, a world of wealth, power, and elegance. And her, she was a walking disaster. That thought haunted her until one afternoon when she accidentally overheard a conversation between Bonnie and Nikki in his office. "Do you really think she's right for you?" Bonnie's voice was soft but cutting. Nikki was silent. "She's a child, Nikki, clumsy, impulsive, and completely unremarkable." Rosalind froze outside the door. Bonnie leaned in slightly, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You need someone on your level, Nikki. Someone who won't embarrass you in front of the world. Someone who belongs in your world." And her? She let out a soft, almost pitying laugh. "She's nothing but a temporary distraction." Rosalind felt her heart shatter. She turned and ran before anyone could notice she was there. Only when she reached the glass doors of the building, staring out at the busy New York streets, did she realize she didn't want to leave. Not because of the job, not because of pride, but because she loved Nikki. She didn't know when it had happened. But now, she knew one thing for certain. She couldn't lose him. Rosalind didn't show up to work the next morning, or in the afternoon, or the next day. At first, he brushed it off. She was impulsive, emotional, she'd be back. But as the hours stretched, something unfamiliar gnawed at him. By the second day, he couldn't focus. By the third, he was barely functioning. And that's when he knew he had to find her. For the first time in years, his schedule was completely thrown off, not because of business, but because of one person. A clumsy, chaotic girl who had made his perfectly structured life so much more interesting. Finally, when he found out Rosalind was at a small cafe by the river, he canceled all his meetings and stormed out. When he walked into the cafe, Rosalind's eyes widened. "Boss?" Nikki didn't answer. He pulled out a chair, sitting directly across from her, his sharp gaze locked onto hers. "Were you planning on running away?" Rosalind tightened her grip around her coffee cup. "I just needed to think." "Then let me help you think." Nikki pulled out a $20 bill and placed it on the table. Rosalind blinked. "What is this?" A rare smile curved his lips. "Returning the $20 you gave me for that coffee in exchange for a chance to keep you by my side." Rosalind froze. "I don't care about Bonnie. I don't care about anyone else. The only person I care about is you." A long silence stretched between them. Then Rosalind chuckled, her eyes sparkling. "You know, you're terrible at confessing." Nikki smirked. "So, will you take the deal?" Rosalind looked at the $20 bill, then back into his eyes. Slowly, she leaned in and pressed a soft kiss to his cheek. "I think we have a deal, dearest boss." A few months later, at Anderson & Co.'s anniversary gala, Rosalind walked into the grand hall in an elegant dress. This time, she had triple-checked that it wasn't inside out. She had no idea that Nikki had planned something special. As she chatted with her coworkers, the lights in the hall suddenly dimmed and a deep voice echoed through the microphone. "Someone once told me that she wasn't perfect, that she was a walking disaster." Rosalind turned, frozen in place as she saw Nikki stepping onto the stage, microphone in hand, his piercing gaze locked onto hers. But the truth is, she's the one who made my dull life worth living. A wave of whispers swept through the crowd. Rosalind gawked, her heart pounding wildly. Right in front of hundreds of employees, Nikki Anderson, the famously cold CEO, got down on one knee. He pulled out a cookie. The entire hall fell silent. Rosalind squinted. "Are you serious?" Nikki smirked. "The real ring is in my pocket, but since you turned my life upside down, I figured I'd surprise you too." Rosalind burst out laughing, tears slipping down her cheeks. "You're the worst, but also the only one I love." Nikki chuckled and pulled out a sparkling diamond ring. "So, will you marry me?" She didn't answer, not with words. Instead, she ran straight into his arms, burying her face in his chest as the entire hall erupted in cheers. Her voice was muffled, but he heard it, clear as day. "You idiot, of course, yes." Under the dazzling lights, they shared a kiss, marking the beginning of a love story that wasn't perfect, but was absolutely meant to be. Married life with Nikki Anderson wasn't a fairy tale of perfection. It was chaotic, unpredictable, and absolutely wonderful. Mornings were never peaceful. Nikki, ever the disciplined CEO, woke up at exactly 6 a.m. sharp every day. Rosalind, she was a serial snooze button abuser. "5 more minutes," she mumbled, clinging to his arm like a koala. Nikki sighed. "You said that 15 minutes ago." Rosalind peeked at him through sleepy eyes, then grinned. "And yet I'm still here. Must mean you like it." He didn't argue. Instead, he pulled the blanket over both of them and let her have 5 more minutes. But the real battlefield? The kitchen. Rosalind was banned from using the microwave after she almost set it on fire. Again. She tried to be helpful once and accidentally put dish soap in the rice cooker. Nikki walked in, took one look at the foamy mess, and sighed. "I married a menace." Rosalind beamed. "And you love me for it." She wasn't wrong. Despite all the disasters, there were moments that made everything worth it. Like the way Nikki always reached for her hand first, no matter where they were. Or how he let her steal half his food, even when she swore she wasn't hungry. Or the way his eyes softened when he thought she wasn't looking, as if she was the most precious thing in his world. One evening, as they lay on the couch, Rosalind sighed dreamily. "I still don't get why you married me." Nikki turned to her, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. His voice was quiet but firm. "Because every time you're around, my world feels alive." Rosalind blinked. Then, with a soft smile, she buried her face into his chest. "Good," she murmured, "because I'm planning to stay forever." Nikki chuckled, wrapping his arms around her. Forever sounded just right,